Has anyone seen any lions around here? No? Okay. That's good. Well, let's get started, hey? Welcome to Virtual Salt. You're back again. Well done. Have I told you about Kids Church Online? So that's kind of like Virtual Salt, except it's made by you guys. So if you want to check that out, you can go to this web address and you can check it out there. Now, who remembers what we have learnt last week? What did we do last week on Virtual Salt? If you're having trouble trying to remember, I have a few pictures that might be able to re-jog your memory. So here's the first one. I'll bring it up right now. Our first one is by Grace Brittle. She's drawn a picture of Jacob and Rachel. Well done, Grace. And next one, we have Natalie and David Robinson. Well done, guys. Joint effort. So you guys have drawn a Jacob and you've drawn Rachel and Leah. Next, we have Elise, who's drawn a picture of, it looks like Jacob and Rachel, and then Jacob being very surprised. We also have Chloe Eakins, who's done a drawing of Joseph and his really colourful coat and his brothers. That's a story from a couple weeks ago. And lastly, we have a picture of David, drawn by Pippa Nelsonhauer. Well done, Pippa. Well, that's all the pictures we have for this week. Now, it's over to the weather.
Hey Salt, it's me Liam, the weatherman. Hey Salt, it's me Liam, the weatherman. Oh, hey Salt, it's me Liam, the weatherman. Somebody has handed me a weather report, so I'm going to be reading to you from that. And let's just see what it says. So today it says it's sunny, which it is. It's got a bit of cloud as well. Cloud's good. And it also says, it has a fun fact on here as well. It says, did you know that Liam stinks? I stink. Who read this? Nah, that's it. Not today. Anyway, over to you, Tamika.
Hey guys, welcome back to Story Time. Today we're going to be reading a story called Daniel and the Scary Sleepover. It's from Daniel and the Lion's Den, from Daniel chapter 6. Things were not looking good for God's people. They had been captured and taken far from home, and now they were slaves of the king of Babylon. But God had not left his people. He was with them and he was looking after them. Daniel loved God and obeyed him. Now God made Daniel able to understand lots of different things, so it wasn't long before the king of Babylon noticed him. King Darius liked how clever Daniel was, so he made Daniel his most important helper of all, and put him in charge of lots of other helpers. But the other helpers didn't like this. They wanted the king to like them the best. They wanted to get rid of Daniel. So they spied on Daniel. They tried to find things wrong with Daniel. Things that they could tell the king. But there was nothing. There weren't any. None. They couldn't find a thing at all. Except there was just the one thing. Every day, 3 times a day, without fail, no matter what, Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. They smiled to themselves. Let's get the king to make a law. No one is allowed to pray to anyone except to the king. Daniel won't obey this law, and he will be punished. They were pleased with themselves for being so clever, and they hurried off to tell the king. The king liked their idea. He didn't know that they were tricking him. So he made it into a law. Everyone must pray only to me. If you don't, the lions will have you for their dinner. Daniel heard this. He knew it was wrong to pray to anyone except God. He had to do what God said, whatever it cost him. even if it meant that he would die. So Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. That's just what the bad men knew Daniel would do. They skipped straight off to tell the king. "Oh, your most glittering highness, your law says, does it not, that everyone must pray to you alone, sire?" "Yes," said the king. "Oh, magisterial brightness, then correct us if we're wrong, but it would seem that Daniel is praying to God, not to you." The king was sad. He had been tricked. He didn't want to hurt Daniel, but he couldn't change his law. And so he let the soldiers throw Daniel to the lions. "May your God, who loves you so much, rescue you," the king said. The king went back to his palace. But he didn't sleep that night, not a wink. He tossed and turned until finally, at the first glimmer of dawn, he leaped out of his bed and ran straight to the den. "Daniel," he cried, "has your God rescued you?" "Yes," Daniel shouted. "God sent an angel to close the lions' mouths." And there, resting on his head on Daniel's lap, was the biggest lion, purring like a little kitten. The king brought Daniel out of the den. "Look," he said, "Daniel doesn't even have a scratch." The king made a new law. "Daniel's God is the true God, the God who rescues. Pray to him instead." God would keep on rescuing his people. And the time was coming when God would send another brave hero like Daniel, who would love God and do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant that he would die. And together they would pull off the greatest rescue the world has ever seen. The end.
Hello, Salty viewers. Welcome back to another episode of Salty News. Thanks for watching, as this week, ladies and jelly beans, we are going to be interviewing someone quite unexpected. That's right, Daniel was fully booked, but this week we have King Darius. How are you going, Darius?
Thanks, Juliet. I'm eager to talk to you today about the things that I saw happen in front of my very own eyes. I'm a king, so as you can imagine, I've seen many wondrous things, but nothing like this.
Certainly. You were the king of Babylon, so you didn't follow Daniel's God. Didn't watching Daniel stay and trust that he had in his God change your view at all?
Absolutely. For one, Daniel was one of my favorite people, and to find out that I had been tricked into making a law Daniel could not follow, I was devastated. Even though I didn't want Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den, there was nothing I could do. Daniel would not disobey his God for me, regardless of the consequences. It was a blow at the time, but now, even I, King of Babylon, am amazed that I was able to see such an awesome sight.
Well, I wonder, King Darius, how often is it that people who get thrown into lions' dens come out in one piece?
Almost never. You see, lions are not the safest pets for one thing, but also we don't feed ours too regularly, just to make sure they have a big appetite when they have a visitor. So to see Daniel alive after 10 minutes was amazing, let alone a whole night. I couldn't believe my eyes. Daniel's God is real, and he did rescue him. Why, oh, why did I command people to pray to me? I am king, but even so, I couldn't do that.
So do you think God used this experience with Daniel and the lions to prove something to you? I mean, it's amazing that God saved Daniel, but he didn't have to. Do you think God used this to show you that he's real, powerful, and trustworthy?
Absolutely. Daniel knew that God was with him whether he was alive or dead, but Daniel's absolute faith, regardless of what was going to happen to him, and that God rescued him big time, really opened my eyes. God is real and powerful, and that is the truth. I want people to pray to him instead, not me.
That's incredible that you've come to this realization, Darius. What advice would you give people who don't know God or even know that He's real?
Well, obviously, I can't show exactly what I saw, but God has done something even more incredible than saving someone from lions. Later on, long ago, after that whole chucking Daniel into the lion's den incident, God actually came down to earth himself as a human. He came to save everyone from sin and death, which is way more scarier than the lion. So my advice is to go and find out more about him in a book called the Bible, because he has done these things especially for you.
Whoa, thanks, Your Majesty. That's incredible news. I might go check it out now. Thank you, Darius, again for being with us, and thank you to our Salty viewers for tagging along. We'll see you next time with some more Salty news.
Whoa. Well, I'm glad we figured out where those lions got to. They're in the den with Daniel. And how cool is it that King Darius figured out who God was? That was really cool. Just by seeing Daniel's trust in God, he was able to figure out who he was. Now, I challenge you to draw the best picture of King Darius. So draw it down, take a picture of it, and send it in to this email. Send it in, then we can have it on Virtual Salt next week. Alright guys, that's all we have for today. See you later. Alright. How do I get out of here? What? This is so weird. I have an idea. We can